I really worry that we could possibly lose the monarch butterfly migration. We will not lose the species because it will persist in the tropics. What we could lose are the types of overwintering groves that you find in California. In Mexico, we could lose that whole system. The monarch migration is absolutely unique in the whole animal kingdom. It's unique among insects, it's unique among animals and birds. It's a phenomenal migration. In fact, we consider it an endangered biological phenomenon. Why is it so amazing? Well, think about this. Let's start in Mexico. Butterflies have been there for 6 months. March 21st, which is the equinox, is telling the butterflies it's time to migrate north. 6 months before that was in September 21st, when it told the butterflies to migrate south. So they leave Mexico at the end of March, they migrate back into Texas, they lay eggs along the Gulf Coast states from Texas all the way to North Florida. A new generation is produced. All the butterflies that spent the winter in Mexico are now dead. The new generation works its way up to the Great Lakes states into southern Canada, and over a course of about 3 weeks, a new generation is produced. And a new generation later in the summer, maybe 4 generations altogether. And then September comes, and now these butterflies, millions and millions and millions of them, are told by the equinox it's time to migrate south. How do they know where to go? They're going back to the exact same trees on the exact same mountains that their grandparents, great-grandparents went to several generations previously. And yet they find their way to these sites. And then they pour in, and as they're coming in, I've seen them circling over the tops of the mountains in the area where they're going to come down. They drop in the tree tops, and then they drop down into the protected valleys, and there they spend the next 5 or 6 months, coming back to a place they've never seen before. How do they do it? The numbers, the regularity, the skipping of generations, and the fact that the whole thing is controlled genetically by processes that we don't even understand. So, why is it an endangered phenomenon? There are at least 3 factors that are causing it. There has been a lot of illegal deforestation and forest degradation in Mexico, and the degradation still goes on right in prime overwintering sites. It has not been stopped. But what has happened in the last decade in the United States is the development of genetically engineered agriculture, where corn and soybean crops have been selected to be resistant to high-powered herbicides. And so the genetically altered seeds are planted, corn or soybean, or corn and soybean alternating crops usually, on a huge scale. I mean a huge scale, an unprecedented scale in all of humanity. So in the spring, after the seeds are planted, the natural native vegetation comes up. The milkweeds, which are the food plants of the monarch butterflies, come up. The nectar sources, which are some of the weeds that flower during the summer and provide nectar for the butterflies, these all come up. And then the fields are sprayed and everything is killed except the soybean or the corn. We're talking about 99.99% kill of all the vegetation in this vast area. And we think this is a major contributing factor to the serious decline of monarchs overwintering in Mexico. The third factor is global warming. It's not only getting warmer, the fluctuations are getting broader, and with these huge, huge storms that we see, There's hope that possibly monarchs might find alternative sites to overwinter in. But in Mexico, the sites where there are forests that are similar to the ones where they do overwinter occur further north and east, but they probably get colder in the wintertime. And we know that there's a critical temperature, 4 degrees below freezing. If it goes to 5 degrees or 6 degrees or 7 degrees, if there's a storm, it'll kill all the butterflies, or 90% of them. So I don't think that there are any places in Mexico that are of sufficient size and have the right microclimatic characteristics that monarchs are going to be able to make it there. What our concern is that they may decline to the point where the numbers can't recover, and we might lose the migration and the overwintering biology of this butterfly.